Hello everyone. Have a nice day. Welcome back to Tu Diep channel. Tu Diep and Nhi are really a burden for Jame when facing his family, work and friends. But Jame feels so happy and peaceful with them. Like he has a family. Jame is about to go far away for work. He doesn't want Tu Diep and Nhi to suffer anymore. He wants to prove that Tu Diep and Nhi are his family. Will there be a wedding? Let's wait and see. Jame sat silently by the campfire, the flickering flames dancing in his eyes, reflecting a determination burning quietly within. The forest whispered around them, the soft rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of flowing water forming a cocoon of peace and anticipation. In front of him sat Tu Diep, the woman who had walked into his life just 6 months ago but felt like a part of him for much longer. In her arms, little Nhi slept soundly, her tiny breaths rising and falling like the calm waves of a quiet lake. She was once an abandoned child with no one to call mother or father. Now, held close in Diep's gentle embrace, she was safe, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and something that was beginning to feel like home. James looked at them, at the woman he loved and the child he longed to call his own, and gently squeezed Diep's hand. His voice was low but steady, carrying the weight of everything he felt. I don't just want to marry you, Diep. I want the whole world to know that you and Nhi are my family. You're where I belong. You're everything to me. It had all started that afternoon when James drove them away from the city, following a dusty road that led to a quiet field nestled between tall trees. They didn't bring anything fancy, just a tent, a portable stove, some fruit, and a few packets of instant noodles. Yet every little item was packed with care, with thought, with love. Nhi was buzzing with excitement, clapping her hands as she discovered new fruits, strange birds, and the simple magic of being outdoors. Diep answered every one of her questions patiently, laughing along with her, eyes full of warmth. James watched them quietly, his heart swelling. It was in these small, unspoken moments that he saw what he truly wanted, not a fleeting romance, not a passing memory, but a life together. As night fell and the fire crackled gently, the three of them shared a modest dinner. They laughed at silly stories, passed around fruit, and soaked in the peace of the forest night. When Nhi finally drifted off to sleep in Diep's arms, James knew he couldn't wait any longer. Bathed in firelight, he turned to Diep and spoke from the depths of his soul. He told her that 6 months may not be a long time, but it was enough for him to know that she was the one, strong, kind, and the only woman who had ever made his heart beat like this. He didn't just want to love her. He wanted to build a future with her, to be her husband, to officially adopt Nhi, to show the world they were a real family. Diep was silent at first, overwhelmed. Her eyes shimmered with tears, her heart trembling between fear and joy. She didn't say a word. Instead, she gently leaned her head on his shoulder. And to James, that was everything. That quiet gesture was her answer, soft, but real. The next morning, as sunlight filtered through the thin fabric of their tent, Nhi was the first to stir. She rubbed her eyes and crawled over to James, whispering stories of talking stars and magical fruits. They shared a simple breakfast, full of laughter and the kind of peace that comes only from being exactly where you're meant to be. James watched them with quiet joy, a single thought rooted deeply in his heart. He didn't want this to be a beautiful memory. He wanted it to be their everyday life. Driving back to the city, he kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other resting gently near Diep's. Breaking the silence, he said, Diep, everything I said last night, I meant it. I want to make it official. I want to marry you. I want to adopt Nhi. I want the world to know we are a family. Diep bit her lip. James, I'm scared, she admitted. What if I'm not ready? What if your family doesn't accept us? He looked at her, his voice calm but unwavering. My mother already understands me. As for my father, I'll face whatever comes, as long as you and Nhi are with me. Nothing else matters. Her heart stirred at his words. And she looked at Nhi sleeping in the back seat, her small hand gently resting on James's. There was something unshakable in his calm, in his quiet determination. She didn't reply. But her eyes said everything: hope, trust, and a fragile but growing sense of belonging. A few days later, James sat down with his parents. His mother was arranging flowers in a vase. His father buried in the newspaper. James took a deep breath and spoke with the same steady conviction: I've met someone. Her name is Tu Diep. She has a little girl, Nhi. They are my family now. I want to marry her. I want to adopt Nhi. Silence fell. His father folded the newspaper slowly, his gaze sharp. His mother looked up, surprised by his serious tone. They asked him the questions he expected, about judgment, about responsibility, about the unknowns of taking in a child without known origins. But James didn't waver. He said that he'd spent his whole life upholding the family name. And now, he wanted to build his own legacy, based on love, on loyalty, on a real home. He said Diep would no longer face the world alone. And Nhi would never again sleep afraid of being abandoned. He would be their anchor, their safety, their home. His father studied him for a long time. There was sternness in his eyes, but also a glimmer of something deeper, respect. Then, finally, he exhaled slowly and nodded. You've always been decisive, James. If this is your choice, I won't stand in your way. But know this, you're taking on a great responsibility. Not just as a man, but as a husband, as a father. His mother wiped away a tear and stepped forward to embrace him. If this is what makes you happy, she whispered, then I'll stand by you. That night, James left his parents' home with his heart lighter than it had been in years. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be questions, challenges, sacrifices. But now, with their blessing and his resolve stronger than ever, he felt ready to face anything. In his mind, he could already see Diep's smile, feel Nhi's tiny arms around his neck, and he knew with absolute certainty, before taking another step forward, he needed the world to know the truth. Tu Diep and Nhi were his family, his future, his everything.